O Lord, King of the universe, break my shackles and set me free. Free me from fear, Lord, from doubts and smallness. Steady my fickle heart. Deep, dark night, the pilgrim's blind. You be his lamp and show him the way. Dispel this cloud of despair, Lord. Let your gracious glance turn my woes into bliss. Awaken my feeble, listless heart. Deep, dark night, the pilgrim's blind. Be his lamp and light his way. Lord, save me from my selfishness. My heart is anxious, counting its losses I think are mine. Pour the warm rain of your love on this barren, withered field of life and make it bountiful once again. Deep, dark night, the pilgrim's blind. Please be his lamp, Lord. Hold his hands and guide him to your way.
Page 101, please join us.
Shall Namaskar and good morning. Special thanks to Mataji's for this wonderful song. There couldn't have been a more suitable song, and especially because you read out the meaning. Yeah, it's a devotee praying to God to make him strong in God's strength. That is the spirit of the song. So, our theme for this morning is strength, stability, spirituality. One of the very important qualifications of a spiritual aspirant, as the great Swami Vivekananda used to say repeatedly, is strength, both physical and mental strength. He would say, weakness has no place in spiritual life. That is what the Upanishads themselves say. Nayamatma balahinena labhyaha. This Atman is not to be attained by the weak. First of all, the body must be strong. We don't have to be wrestlers, but the body must be healthy and strong in a sattvic way, strong enough to withstand the tremendous mental strain and struggle spiritual practice involves. So let us not take a negative attitude towards our bodies. This body of ours is something noble. It is a temple to the divine that dwells within. We need not identify ourselves with it or get overly attached to it, but we have to treat it as a house in which we dwell or a vehicle that we drive. So let us keep it pure and trim. Our elders, I mean the great Swamis of our order, they've all invariably insisted that we spiritual aspirants, sadhakas, must have some regular physical exercise, at least some simple exercises in fresh air on a regular basis. They say this because in our initial enthusiasm, we aspirants tend to neglect our bodily health. In the early days of our struggle, when we are usually grappling with a number of inner conflicts, during that period of stress and strain, we may not realize the advantages of bodily health or physical strength. But later on, as our spiritual life becomes comparatively smooth, and we gain the ability to practice concentration for longer periods of time, we realize what an asset a healthy body is. Even great sages and saints have said that this body of ours is like a boat. It is the only vehicle we have with which to cross the ocean of samsara. So we should take care that it doesn't spring a leak. Indulgence in any form has to be avoided. We need great self-discipline if we want to make the brain strong and keep it cool. Please be quiet. Please don't distract. We need great self-discipline if we want to make the brain strong and keep it cool. Those who have no self-control will find their brains heating up quickly. This is what I meant by making the brain strong. This is what I meant by the sattvic type of strength. What makes a sattvic strong in a sattvic way? Austerity, tapasya. Tapasya, without that, our brain won't have the power to withstand prolonged periods of concentration. Those who enjoy driving will know what a pleasure it is to drive a powerful, well-maintained car. In the same way, it's a source of great joy to live in a strong, well-disciplined body. People who are slaves of pleasure and enjoyment have no idea what joy it is to live in a pure, chaste body. The struggle for purity and self-mastery may be the cause of much tension and suffering in the beginning. But later on, they become a source of great happiness, peace, and contentment. Of course, more than just a healthy body, a healthy and strong mind is more important. Swami Vivekananda used to say that weak-minded people cannot have shraddha, faith. They can't accept a high ideal, much less pay a high price for it. They are scared away by the struggles and sacrifices that spiritual life entails. So it is very essential for spiritual aspirants to strengthen their minds, to strengthen their will. Now, how do we know if we are strong enough? Or at least, how do we know that we are becoming stronger and stronger? There are certain indications. One test of mental strength is faith and perseverance. That is tenacity of purpose. Swamiji used to say that only a strong mind can have firm faith. Just the other day, we were reading from Swami Brahmanandaji's teachings, and we came across these encouraging words, where Brahmanandaji says, hold on to God firmly and have faith in yourself. Say, I am a human being who can achieve something in the spiritual world. Have this kind of faith and move forward, you will reach the goal. So success depends on how firmly and how steadily we can hold on to the spiritual ideal. Even in the midst of all the confusion, even in the face of uncertainty of our life in the world, we have to hold on to a definite way of thinking, feeling, and acting. Otherwise, we'll see that spiritual life doesn't yield much in the end. We set out with great enthusiasm, but when we meet with various kinds of obstacles, we somehow let that fervor evaporate all too easily. So we need great tenacity of purpose. This was one quality that Swamiji greatly and always insisted on in the lives of his disciples and followers. When we read the life stories of the great saints and mystics, when we look at the inspiring lives of the monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, what tremendous strength of mind, what gigantic wills they possessed. We need something of their grit, something of their determination in order to succeed in spiritual life. We may fail a few times, but let us never own defeat. Let us never stop struggling. We may stumble and fall, but we have to pick ourselves up and move on. Because spiritual life is never smooth, and it doesn't always go in a straight line. But if we persist in our struggle and keep rising after every fall, we will come to have great strength of mind and power of discrimination as a result of all that experience. So, the first sign of mental strength is faith and perseverance. Another test of mental strength is the ability to take firm decisions. Indecision, prolonged indecision, is always a sign of mental weakness. It's an indication of unresolved inner conflicts. We don't need a psychologist to tell us that. And conflicts undermine the integrity of our personality. If we remain in a state of indecision for a long time, instead of gaining strength, we become weaker. To remain in a state of indecision, and in that condition to try to make our mind strong, is useless. So let us begin with being decisive in the smaller things of life. Then it becomes easier to take decisions about the bigger ones. Even the small things of life have to be done deliberately, intelligently, and decisively. We need to coordinate all our faculties, that is to say, our thinking, feeling, and willing. These things are easier for us, these things are easier for those who have cultivated good habits early in life. A disciplined, well-regulated life is of great help. If we just follow a strict routine every day, we will see that many of the little problems of life will stop creating indecision and worries. Then we have more energy, more time for bigger things. If I find it difficult to decide what to eat, what to wear, where to go, whether to shave or not, how can I think about God? I shouldn't lie in bed and spend half an hour trying to decide whether to get up or not. Either I get up or sleep for another half hour. But it is not good to remain in an indecisive state, because that becomes a habit. Should I sit for meditation now or later? Let us think well, use our intelligence, and decide quickly, because habitual indecision is harmful in the long run. So as spiritual aspirants, our work, studies, meditation, even relaxation and sleep, everything must all have regular hours, regardless of whether we feel inclined or not. Otherwise, little things at the back of our minds will keep nagging us and drain our energies. If we don't discipline ourselves, we risk dissipating ourselves. So, the ability to take firm decisions, that is the second sign of mental strength. Then, a third test of mental strength is the ability to control even good thoughts. This may surprise many. Why control good thoughts when we should be encouraging them? But strength is needed in controlling not only bad thoughts, but also good thoughts, good impulses. Because if we look at our own mental reactions, we often find that if we are not able to control our good feelings and impulses, we will not be able to control our bad feelings and impulses either. Because feelings are feelings, good or bad, and they need to be controlled. We have to increase our power to control all thoughts and feelings, and this is a most important thing. It is not just a question of control. We should gain mastery over our feelings. We have to be fully conscious and clear in our minds. If we can drive a good sentiment deep into our mind, it will color, it will permeate our entire being. Good sentiments should be retained within. That is the first step to control good feelings and sentiments. If we give expression to them too often and too easily, we lose their motive power. To take an ordinary example, the driving power of a steam engine comes from the tremendous steam pressure. If the steam is released too often, before the driving power builds up, the engine won't move. In the same way, the pure feelings, the holy ideas that arise within, whether from our reading spiritual books, or from our contact with holy people, or from our own spiritual practices, they should be retained within until they bring about a transformation of our character. Until then. That is the main reason why we are forbidden to discuss our spiritual dreams or experiences with others. If we disregard this, we'll only be diluting our spirituality. Discussing one's spiritual experiences, real or imaginary, and feeling nice about it, these things have very little to do with real spirituality. True spiritual aspirants are strong and highly restrained, especially with regard to their spiritual emotions. They may appear reserved from the outside, but they have great intensity of feeling within. The point is, if I am not able to handle a good sentiment that suddenly arises in the mind, it is very likely that I'll succumb to a bad sentiment as soon as the moment it rises within. So first we have to create a solid capital of spiritual emotions, and then we may spend the interest wisely. First, I must accumulate a substantial amount of capital. Otherwise, if I spend the capital itself, I'll very soon end up bankrupt. So we have to have tremendous feeling but we must also be masters of those feelings. Then, yet another sign of mental strength is fearlessness. Many times we lose so much energy through our unspoken fears. Of course, we should not be too bold and think that our spiritual life is quite secure. But as Sri Ramakrishna said, the person who is always afraid of falling is sure to fall. Just as the person who is overconfident is also sure to slip. As we climb higher and higher, there is always the danger of our slipping and falling. But that is no reason why we should allow ourselves to be continually haunted by the fear of falling. In a manner of speaking, it is only those that lie at the bottom that need not fear a fall. Anybody else who wants to rise and climb is sure to experience a couple of slips and falls. So this is all in the game. But still, it is good for us to remember that there is no real security anywhere on the relative plane. Only God realization can give us absolute fearlessness. In the Brihadaranyaka we find the great sage Yajnavalkya telling his student, Emperor Janaka, he says, Abhayam vai Janaka praptosi. Now, O Janaka, you have attained fearlessness. It is the state of absolute fearlessness that one attains after self-realization. The Upanishad even identifies fearlessness with Brahman. Abhayam vai Brahma. Fearlessness is Brahman. And in the Taittiriya Upanishad we read, as soon as fear is produced in a person, as soon as he perceives duality. Etasmin udaramantaram kurute atha tasya bhayam bhavati. Yada hyevaisha etasmin. As soon as a person perceives duality, he is susceptible to fear. So, the more we realize our true self, the more we will perceive the divine everywhere, and the more fearless we become. This is the spiritual basis of fearlessness. And actually it is a sign of spiritual strength rather than mental strength. But we people suffer from a different kind of fear. The fear of other people and their opinions. What will others think of me? Let others think whatever they like. If we are fully convinced that the path that we have chosen is right, it shouldn't matter what others think or say about us. In matters related to principles that affect our life, in such things we should be strong and never yield to others. Let us not lose the treasures of spiritual life for fear of petty-minded people. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we find the Master telling young Narendranath that one should be indifferent to the criticism of such people, as indifferent as an elephant is to the barking of stray dogs. Sri Ramakrishna also used to say that as long as an aspirant has feelings of shame, hatred, and fear, lajja, grina, bhoy, they can't make spiritual progress. It is impossible to satisfy everybody. If some disagree with us, let us know that many others will agree with us. Anyway, after considering all factors, we have to do what we think is right. If a person, Yatishwarananda used to say, if a person tries to please everybody, there must be something wrong with them. On the other hand, if we hold on to our ideal steadfastly, if we don't give up our ideal and live the life, reflect the ideal in our lives, then people around are bound to change their attitude towards us. This we can see for ourselves. So, in dealing with others, we should maintain our own balance. But at the same time, we should also be good to them and try to help them. We should be kind and selfless, but we should also be strong enough to convince others of our strength. Our attitude, our strength of character should be such that others don't dare to take undue advantage of us. As sadhakas, we shouldn't react to situations, to people instinctively, when we are especially when we are treated unfairly or wrongly. And if the situation requires, we need strength not to react instinctively. And if the situation requires that we respond, again, we must be strong. So in either case, we need strength. And we must be so strong that others feel this strength even when we don't hit back. There is a way of remaining quiet that makes the other person feel your strength and feel that he or she is wrong. They may overstep their limits 1 or 2 times, but they won't dare to take advantage of you again. So, we should let others feel our strength not through rash, violent actions, but through our firmness and dignity. The world we live in is so bad and so selfish that it will always try to take advantage of us if we are weak. Swamiji uses a very strong expression. He says, in this world, the weak are driven to the wall. In this world, the weak are driven to the wall. So, one of the first qualities that a spiritual aspirant should develop is strength, real inner strength. We may have the strength of a giant, but we should not use it recklessly like a giant. And this brings us to another sign of strength, namely ahimsa, or non-injury. As Swami Vivekananda pointed out, if I practice ahimsa out of cowardice, there is no merit in that. Real ahimsa means the greatest strength and power of endurance that is humanly possible to attain to. It is the greatest courage combined with the greatest love. That is what ahimsa is. It means total absence of hatred. This is what Sri Krishna tried to teach Arjuna. To do his duty, to fight like a man, like a true warrior, but without feeling any hatred for his opponents. Let us be clear about one thing. Just as anger is said to be as bad as lust, hatred too is as bad as attachment. We should be clear about this. Whether we live in the world or whether we live in a monastery, if we call ourselves seekers of God, there should never be any place for feelings of ill will or enmity in our hearts. As Swamiji once remarked, one who has resigned oneself to God will never try to rise at his brother's expense. One who has resigned oneself to God will never try to rise at his brother's expense, let alone sacrificing others to one's own interests. The struggle for existence may be necessary in the animal kingdom, because there the law of survival of the fittest operates. But human beings are not animals and should not behave like animals. Human beings are supposed to have risen above the laws of the animal world. And we spiritual seekers especially, we are supposed to be trying to reach the kingdom of God. Let us remind ourselves that in the kingdom of God, the law is love and sacrifice. That is our ideal. That is the challenge. The ideal of the spiritual person is to remain unaffected by emotions of love or hatred. They have love and sympathy for others. They feel others suffering more than they do their own sufferings. They have nothing but compassion even for those who hate them. And they always do their best to help others even at great personal sacrifice. But this is important. For all this, they refuse to be drawn into worldliness in the name of love and compassion. They refuse to be used by others for their own selfish interests. There you see their inner strength. When it comes to adhering to the spiritual ideal, they are inflexible. This we need to understand. There are two powers at work in this world: Vidya Shakti and Avidya Shakti. The power of knowledge and the power of ignorance. Spiritual seekers must be open to the former, to Vidya Shakti, but not to the latter. If you know Sri Ramakrishna's parable of the snake and the brahmachari, this may involve some occasional hissing purely in self-defense. But there should never be any biting. There should never be any sting in our reactions. We should never do actual harm. Seekers of God should not even entertain feelings of hatred or revenge. But they have to be intelligent. They have to be sensitive to the forces of good and evil playing around them. True ahimsa is a very high ideal, and we can only proceed step by step towards that high ideal. The heart has to be purged of all evil tendencies. Real ahimsa comes only as the result of a genuine spiritual experience. There's a great difference between ahimsa in theory and ahimsa in actual practice. In the Ishavasya Upanishad it says, when one sees the self in all beings and all beings in the self, then he hates none. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. So this is a recurring idea in the Upanishads, that self-realization is the basis of true ahimsa. When one realizes the self, one hates no one. But during the early stages of spiritual life, an aspirant has to be highly alert and very careful in dealing with others. We need not be too soft or yielding in the name of ahimsa, in the name of not hurting others. People who are too soft, without any inner mettle, will find spiritual life doubly difficult. We need great strength of character to face the evils of life in the world. We should not be soft or sentimental where our spiritual life is concerned. However, that is just half the story. We are talking about others and the outside world. We should be equally hard, equally dispassionate with ourselves too. We should root out from our hearts all feelings of anger, hatred, and violence. Why they say this is, all too often we put on a smile and bear with others, all the while burning with indignation inside. That is, trying to appear as something we are not. When we take this too far, it is nothing but hypocrisy in the name of politeness. And a spiritual aspirant has nothing to do with such attitudes. So, it is such a thing is not only not spiritual, but as a habit, it becomes quite harmful. So, non-violence has to be practiced both inside and outside. When it is practiced inside, it increases strength of character. Let us remember this. Only the strong, only the spiritually strong can be truly non-violent. So now we have discussed the two aspects of strength, physical and mental. And we have come to know about the 5 signs of mental strength, or more accurately, strength of character, signs of strength of character. The first one, faith and perseverance. 2, the ability to take firm decisions. 3, the ability to control all feelings and emotions, good and bad. 4, fearlessness. And 5, ahimsa. But there is also a higher, a spiritual dimension of strength, which Swami Vivekananda literally worshipped, and which he wanted his disciples and followers also to embrace. If we can't do that, we are not true Vedantists yet. So what is that strength, that higher dimension of strength? What constitutes that spiritual strength? It mainly consists in facing and accepting what Swamiji described as the terrible aspect of reality, or the destructive aspect of truth. To say things plainly, we have to consciously make our heart a cremation ground. A cremation ground of our ego, together with all its impurities and attachments. If you think about it, this is in no way different from the worship of God that we have in temple shrines. Actually, this is the only true worship there is. And for Vedantists, it need not frighten us. Our weakness is we only worship a favorable God who gives us what we like: enjoyment, money, success. But evil, pain, suffering, they are also gods. Everywhere, people only worship God who grants boons. We recoil at the very idea of God as the great destroyer. Shiva is the giver of blessings, is all right. But we are afraid of Shiva dancing his terrible dance of destruction. Why? We have no explanation for this irrational attitude. God is God when he creates and preserves, but ceases to be God when he destroys. That can't be. That is not the God of Vedanta. The Vedanta God is God only when he is God in all three aspects: creation, preservation, destruction. And above all, God who is none of these, God the Absolute. Shiva in his real nature as pure consciousness. It is the same God in his relative and absolute aspects. That is the whole, that is the complete picture of God. If we think about it, it's a wonderful, a most profound, it's a comprehensive symbol of reality or truth. If we are really spiritual seekers, that is to say, if we seek God and God alone, why should we be afraid of pain or misery or death? They can also be glorious. From a spiritual angle, they can also be glorious. Blessed suffering, as Swamiji would say. Where do we find Shiva's greatest play? In the cremation ground. The cremation ground is as true, as real as the nursery. In life and in death, the devotee should cling to God and to God alone, neither loving life nor fearing death. That is a Vedantin. Very often it happens that when we have a great fascination, I won't call it craving, even when we have a fascination for the pleasant, we get misery, suffering, pain, physical and psychological. Bodily suffering is nothing compared to the mental distress that most of us have to go through at some point in our lives. So it is good for us to always bear in mind that the truth, reality, is beyond happiness and suffering. It can only be attained by transcending both of them, joy and sorrow. No physical suffering can ever be compared to the terrible anxieties that torment our mind. And this mental anguish can never be transcended as long as we keep clinging to the pleasant aspect of life and keep denying, keep refusing to accept the terrible aspect. We must be ready to give up both aspects of life if we really want to reach God and attain peace and blessedness. So, it is very important to be able to accept the destructive aspect of truth, the terrible aspect of reality. For that, we must first of all burn all our false identifications, burn all our false loves, false aspirations and ambitions and hopes and expectations in the cremation ground of the heart. We must burn our pet ideas, our little likes and dislikes. Only heroes can do that. And the truth, Swamiji said, the truth reveals itself only to such heroes who are ready to face it, who are ready to face the truth. It is not that we don't know these things. We know the way shown by sages and saints, and we have the means to take it up. But our minds are so perverse that we keep postponing our efforts. We derive some shallow intellectual enjoyment from these ideas, and we content ourselves with that, without making any real effort to realize their truths ourselves. That is why we remain where we are, more or less. If we take a hard look at our spiritual progress, so-called spiritual progress, what do we find? Regardless of monastic or lay, mostly we want to continue dreaming our little dreams of love and attachment. We are unwilling to give up our ambitions and expectations. We would like to cling to them as long as we possibly can. We know they are going to be torn away from us, or we from them. But still, we are not ready to let go of them by ourselves. That is our honest condition. But real spiritual life is a really serious thing. It is only for the strong. If we want to make ourselves really strong, spiritually strong, we must be prepared to do away with all dreams, big or small, including even the apparently good ones. If we are ready to do that, to deal with ourselves dispassionately, sacrifice our pet notions, our petty preferences and prejudices, to burn our worldliness in the cremation ground within, then, if we pay that price, then a tremendous readjustment takes place within, creating an entirely new spiritual outlook. Swamiji writes in one of his well-known poems, "Arise, awake, and dream no more. Be bold and face the truth. Be one with it. Let vision cease, or if you can't, dream but truer dreams." But we need uncompromising boldness and courage. Only those who are bold, strong, determined, and self-reliant can accomplish this. For them, spiritual life is a real adventure. Swamiji repeated this so many times in so many ways. Vedanta is not for the weak, not for people who constantly think themselves small and sinful, but never make any attempt, any effort to wake up from their empty dreams and rise. He said, purity is ours by birthright. Freedom is ours by birthright. But it is not enough merely to acknowledge that. If purity is our birthright, we should manifest that purity in life. If freedom is our birthright, we should manifest that freedom in life. Why go soil our souls in the world? Why be slaves to our own senses? So Swamiji exhorted his followers to break all dreams and learn to stand on your own feet. These are all inspiring words of Swamiji. So, after reading and hearing and knowing and learning so much about Vedanta, it should not be too difficult for us to do that in our own humble way. We only need to constantly remind ourselves what we really are. We only have to constantly think of the Atman and have faith in ourselves. That is the best and ultimately the most effective way of being spiritually strong. Even the rishis of the Upanishads have said the same thing. A knower of the self, having renounced everything temporal, that is, after having broken all little dreams. A knower of the self, having renounced everything temporal, stands firmly on the strength that comes from self-knowledge. Shankaracharya says, if you want to become like those rishis, you have to live like them. You have to emulate them. So let us think more and more about the Atman standing behind our body and mind. That is our true nature after all. To the extent we dissociate ourselves from the false personality and identify ourselves with the pure spirit, to that extent we become spiritual. We become strong and fearless, and we enjoy purity and peace. To the extent we identify ourselves with the divine within, we become holy. When the mind goes outside, it becomes impure and bound. This we know. But when it withdraws into the Atman, it becomes pure and free. This we have to realize. So the key to success in spiritual life is to look upon oneself as a spiritual being, Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta, ever pure, luminous, free by nature. At the time of our meditation, let us drive this idea deep into our consciousness. If we make this a habit consciously, then a time will come in our life when purity, light, and freedom will begin to shine even through our body and mind. But, I repeat, we have to make a clean break with the past, whatever it may have been. Jesus Christ said, follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead. These are the words of an incarnation of God, the words of an avatar. They have great Vedantic significance. We must be dead to the world, and the world must become dead to us. Let those who want to weep over their attachments and weaknesses weep by all means, but let us follow the light of God within. The ever pure, luminous, free Atman. Let us assert its glory, even when the mind is clouded and inclined towards evil. Even then, Ashokanandaji says, your mind may be depressed, But why should you be depressed? He makes it such a clear distinction. So let us remember these glorious words of Swami Vivekananda. Arise, awake, awake from this hypnotism of weakness. No one is really weak. The soul is infinite, omnipotent, and omniscient. Stand up, assert yourself, proclaim the God within you. Teach yourself, teach everyone their real nature. Call upon the sleeping soul and see how it awakes. Power will come, glory will come, goodness will come, purity will come, and everything that is excellent will come when this sleeping soul is roused to self-conscious activity. These are Swamiji's immortal words. So let us now conclude with a Vedic prayer, with an inspiring Vedic prayer that is very similar to the song that we heard at the beginning. The Rishi prays, Tejosi tejo mayi dhehi, Viryamasi viryam mayi dhehi, Balamasi balam mayi dhehi, Ojosi ojo mayi dhehi, Manyurasi manyum mayi dhehi, Sahosi saho mayi dhehi. Lord, you are the repository of all energy. Fill me with energy. You are the wellspring of all vigor. Endow me with vigor. You are the source of all strength. Make me strong. You are the storehouse of all power. Grant me power. You are the embodiment of courage. Inspire me with courage. You are the personification of fortitude. Steel me with fortitude. Yeah, I think I exhausted myself talking about strength. We'll take up the matter of stability in the next installment of this talk, sometime next month. But before we disperse, I have next week's program to announce. So we will be having our annual Labor Day weekend retreat next weekend, September 6th, Saturday and Sunday, September 7th. So on Saturday, the program begins in the morning. Please check with our website for the details. But we'll be having Swami Sarvasthanandaji of London. He'll be returning from his short trip this Wednesday, and he'll be with us until after this Labor Day retreat. So there'll be 3 sessions. On Saturday, all 3 sessions will be handled by Sarvasthanandaji, but there will be, in the afternoon, there's going to be a panel discussion by Revered Atmasthanandaji and me, followed by Arati. And at 7:30, we have a vocal concert by Jannavi Hansalkar, who will be accompanied on the tabla by Malhar Goswami. After that, we'll have dinner at 9 o'clock. So the music concert will be from 7:30 to 9 the evening on Saturday. On Sunday, yes, from morning, early morning, there will be silent meditation in the shrine, then the usual worship and breakfast. Between 9:30 and 10:45, Sarvasthanandaji will conduct another session, and then there'll be a short break, followed by a panel discussion including Sarvasthanandaji and Dr. Jeffrey Long. So for all the details as to the topics and all, please refer to our website. And again, on Sunday afternoon, there will be about an hour's devotional songs and a concluding session of question-answer session by Sarvasthanandaji, Atmajnananandaji, and myself. And the retreat will end at 3 o'clock. So all of you are invited. And now, may I request everybody to join us for some light refreshments in the basement. Thank you all for coming, but please make sure to attend the weekend retreat.